everyone, and welcome back to my studio, and welcome back to another week with Dala Creative TV. My mom and dad left yesterday after a 2-week visit, and I can't help it, but I feel very nostalgic today. It made me look through all the old photos that I have, and I found one of my mom as a young girl sitting with her aunts. One look at this photo and I knew that I wanted to do a collage painting today. I want to do something different, so I am going to do an acoustic painting. Acoustic is just a fancy word for hot wax painting. And today we are going to paint with Dala's beeswax. It comes in 3 different sizes and I have the 500 gram tub. You also need a flat brush with natural bristles. Synthetic bristles will burn or melt when you dip it into the hot wax. Here you can see I have my hot plate set up, and I also have a foil container in which I'm going to melt the wax. I'm using wax paper on my surface just in case I spill. I have a printout of the photo of my mom and her aunts, and because they're wearing costumes, I also printed out 2 pictures of the ocean I took on holiday. I also have old book pages, and then I've cut out some silhouettes of seagulls on grey scrapbooking paper. My birds are cut out with a cutting machine, but you can just as easily cut silhouettes by hand. We will also need tweezers to dip our pictures into the hot wax. And to cure the wax, I am going to use my heat gun. I am going to paint the background with craft paint. Okay, so let's get this project going, and I am going to melt some wax pellets in the silver container. I just want to caution you to be very careful. The wax is going to be very hot, so I want you to take extra care with what you are doing. While the wax is melting, I am going to cut out my images. I am now going to look at my layout and position the images where I want them. The wax is almost melted, and I want to caution you again to be very careful. And here is something that you should not do. I left my brush in the hot wax and it burned my bristles. Lucky for me, I caught it in time and I can still use my brush. But for the painting, I'm just going to use my fingers. Those who know me very well know that I prefer to paint with my hands. I am going to use blue, green and white to paint the sky, and I'm going to mix and blend it on my canvas. For the beach area, I am just going to use a neutral brown color to create the sand. now going to cover the background with a layer of hot wax. It is really freezing cold here, and I can see that the wax sets very quickly. I am not concerned about this because I'm going to cure it with my heat gun. The heat gun will melt the wax again, and I can easily manipulate it with my brush, or I can scrape it away with a card, or I can even let the hot air blow it into any direction that I want it. Here I am using my brush to move the wax around on my canvas. I'm positioning my first image where I want it. And I am using the tweezers to dip it into the hot wax. I am just going to move the camera so that you can see what I'm doing. The whole picture is dipped into the wax. Quickly remove it and place it onto your canvas where you want it. I could not move the camera while I had the picture with the hot wax in my hand, but I set it down and I scraped over it so that it can set into the background. I am going to do exactly the same with the second picture that I have of the ocean. Position it, dip it, and put it down, scrape it as quickly as you can. You can see that I spilled some wax on my canvas, and I'm just going to use my heat gun, and I'm just going to melt the wax and just brush over it with the paintbrush. I am now ready to put down the image of my mom. Again, position it, see where you want to put it, dip it into the wax and put it down. Try to work as fast as you can without burning yourself. I am repeating the process with every layer of collage that I want to add. I am going to wax some hessian or burlap into the foreground just under the text. But first I'm going to blend this book page with the background with some craft paint. With a fan brush, I am going to put some white splatters onto the background. I am now going to add the birds, doing exactly the same, dipping them into the wax, putting it down, and making sure that I don't burn myself when I press lightly on it so that it can stick to the background. After I've waxed the hessian strip onto the foreground, I dipped the wood yesterday that I printed out with my images into the hot wax and waiting it for it to cure and dry onto the fabric. I am going around the edges with white oil pastel to frame my image. Once the wax is dry, you will see that your painting has this silky smooth and glossy finish to it. You have to see it in person to see how beautiful the effect is. It is my first time painting with beeswax, and it turned out exactly the way I anticipated. Vintage, shabby, weathered. It is the perfect painting to honor my mom. It is time to say goodbye, and I hope to see you next week.